tomorrow, Bones is streaming on Twitch. Make sure to go watch it. It's from 2 to 4 Eastern Standard Time, so go check it out. There's a link down below. See you there tomorrow. Okay, on to the video. Hello, everyone. I am back, and I am redoing some thumbnails because, well, I showed Bones that I had finished my thumbnails, and he sat down and was looking through them. And he had his script open, and he had the thumbnails open, and he was going through them, and he was writing notes for me, and then eventually he just stopped, and he was like, okay, I'm having the same problem with, like, 90% of these. How about we just sit down and talk about it? And I was like, oh no. So I had a moment to, like, mentally prepare myself for a big feedback. And yeah, and so we sat down, and he was like, a lot of these compositions are decent. However, they could be more dynamic. And I was like, oh dang, you're right. So, well, the thing you pointed out is that, like, a lot of my panels were really looking very similar and very flat. Like, either they were looking really, like, one-dimensional, like he was having trouble picturing what the actual page would look like. Not because, like, of lack of detail, but just lack of layering and understanding, like, where characters were in the space and what they were doing, and it just looked kind of boring and dull. Or it was just a shot that was very boring. Like, it was straight on, there weren't any interesting angles, there wasn't any action happening, a lot of, like, mid shots and stuff like that. Like, very boring looking panels. And to be honest, like, that's just my go-to when I'm laying out thumbnails. And they usually get more dynamic when I put them into pencils. However, I want to be better about that and not wait until I'm working on details to make my panel layouts really dynamic and nice. So I'm doing a draft number 2 on my thumbnails before I get into coloring them. Yeah, we were also just talking about this, like, concept that Iron Spike pointed out on Twitter. She was saying that it can be easy to see when a comic artist has studied animation previously, or if they've studied, like, directly from comics. And the thing she pointed out is that, like, in animation, the storyboards are very different than laying out a comic page because in animation or in film, there's a lot of rules to help with continuity. For example, like the 180 rule, where you can't have the camera angle flipping all over the place, or you won't be able to tell where characters are in a space, and, like, limitations of, say, like, the camera can limit the kinds of shots you can do, and the aspect ratio is usually pretty set. Where in a comic page that is very comic-y, you have a lot more wiggle room for, say, like, camera angles and panel shapes and sizes. And in a comic panel, you can have a ton of motion within one panel. This is something that I tend to neglect in my work, and I didn't really notice it until it was pointed out. And I was like, oh, shoot, I should do this more, where you can have multiple actions happening in one panel. Like, the best example I can give is, like, so you have a character who's jumping from rooftop to rooftop. You can show in one panel multiple versions of that character on different rooftops with, like, motion lines going between where they were before and where they are now. You know, and you can do that in one comic panel. You don't have to break it up into several. Yes, and choosing different panel sizes and panel shapes. You can convey a lot of motion and a lot of feeling from that as well. And I was looking at my work for this comic, for this 9-point issue, and I was like, I could be utilizing cool panel layouts, and I could be pushing these compositions to be a lot more dynamic and fun. And Bones pointed out that, like, not every panel has to be, like, super amazing and, like, super dynamic, but having them all as, like, mid-shot and, like, straight on, it loses the emotion of the content of the panel. So, for example, like, if I have a comedic panel happening, why not make the layout of the panel comedic, you know, instead of only relying on the character's expression to make it funny. So that is what I'm going through right now. I'm going through the pages that have obvious problems or are boring and trying to make them a little more interesting. I brought out a bunch of, like, reference books to look at, just, like, ones that I know have, like, really nice paneling. and just as like an inspiration, or like just see what other people have done to kind of get my brain thinking in that way. So the books I was looking at Cucumber Quest, one of my favorite comics. I was looking at Watchmen, because that book has a lot of really cool layouts and really detailed panels, which is something that I do not do very often. That's another thing about comic panels that is great. You can put in a ton of detail all over the panel, whereas like that might be harder in something that has motion because you want all the attention to go to the motion, I think. Maybe I shouldn't talk about this because I'm not super versed in animation and film. But in comic pages, you can put in a ton of detail into one panel because people will be looking at it for a long time and they can study it and look at it over and over again. I also brought out a few volumes of Hellboy and Oh Human Star. Oh Human Star is a really great comic. There's lots of great page layouts. And yeah, and I was looking through them and getting hype about cool layouts. And even looking at the stuff I did in today's session of working on this, I'm like, how do I make this better? I feel like the place where I'm at right now is the worst and the best. And like, I always hate when I get to this point, but it like has a really nice result where like I find a mistake in my work or like a shortcoming in my work. And like when it's pointed out, it feels really bad. Like when Bones was telling me about this stuff, I was like a little bit heartbroken. I was like, oh, my art, it is bad because I'm missing this key concept. But like, it's good to know that there's something I'm lacking, because now that I know what it is, I can work to put it into my work. So right now I'm a little befuddled because I'm like, oof, here's this new scary thing that I have to like learn to make my comic pages just better. But like, I can't beat myself up for not doing it in the past, because there were other priorities I had at the time when I was working on them. And like, it's really important to not hate on myself for not knowing a thing. I gotta keep pushing forward. I gotta keep improving. And like, what I'm trying to focus on right now, instead of worrying about like the quality of my past work, I'm trying to get really excited about how great things are going to look now that I'm focusing on this concept of like more dynamic paneling. And the thing is, like, I've done dynamic paneling in like Magpie, for example. Like whenever one of the Elder Gods shows up in like Pretty Mouth or Magpie, I tend to do some like more creative layouts than my usual stuff. So I know I'm capable of doing this thing. I'm just disappointed that, like, I wasn't doing it, I guess. Yeah. Because I know that, like, doing lots of, like, boring paneling or really, like, similar paneling where it's all, say, like, mid-shots and, like, square panels and stuff, and doing those all the time instead of, like, things that are better suited to, like, the content. I think it's just, like, a bad habit from producing pages super, super fast. Because if I look back at, like, Sovereign, which is like my first comic, a lot of it was put out really, really fast because we were afraid of like going on hiatus or not meeting deadlines or whatever. And it was a comic that halfway through we're like, oh, let's just get this done. There were a lot of pages and panels that are not very creative because I was just on that like conveyor belt, get the page out, get it done thing, instead of like putting creative energy into it, really. There's lots of pages in it that I still like, but a lot of it is very like, not minimalist, but like bare bones. Because minimalist would imply that like I put the work in to strip it down to its like barest form, but it was mostly just like lazy work to get it out quicker. So I'm trying to like stay on the hype train of like this stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, getting feedback, I think you always need to take a little bit to like heal from it. Because like Bones and I have talked about this before on streams and stuff. Feedback can be very hurtful. Like there's this idea that goes around the art community, I find. And I used to partake in it. And I'm very disappointed in myself for partaking in it. But there's this idea that you have to be able to be like super thick-skinned and take any criticism, like not take it personally, to only like turn into a robot and obey every piece of feedback you get. And if you complain about it or you don't agree about it or it hurts your feelings, like you're just supposed to sit there and take it. And I don't think that's really a healthy way to look at feedback. I think personally, I don't like to start fights over feedback. I'll usually just nod and leave if, like, I'm hurt or I disagree. Unless it's, like, bones, because we can discuss things. But I think if like, having a mistake pointed out to you hurts, it's okay to just feel hurt for a little bit. You don't have to be a robot, and you don't have to agree to every piece of feedback that you get. So I'm trying to feel my feelings, but not let it get in the way of improving my art. Like, I'm trying to, like, not take it personally in a healthy way, I guess. Where it's like, instead of hating on myself, I'm just like, you can do this, Gray. Yee. So yeah, there's my hot take on feedback. I feel like I sound really hurt, but I'm not, like, that hurt. Yeah, I think I'm just disappointed in myself. I think part of it is, like, because I talk about webcomic advice and comic art advice, and then when someone's like, hey, you're doing a thing wrong, I'm like, oh no, I'm a bad teacher. What am I doing? Why am I here? But everyone's on their art journey. We're all gonna learn and improve together. So that is where I'm at with these thumbnails. I'm still not super satisfied with the work I've done today, and I think it's just because I'm wrapping my head around this new concept. But, like, I just gotta keep working at it. I think it's really unfair to myself to expect me to, like, internalize this concept within, like, a few hours of having it pointed out to me. So yeah, I just gotta, like, keep working at it, keep practicing it, and keeping it in mind in the future, and eventually I'll get some really good results, and there's nothing wrong with me iterating on these thumbnails a whole bunch until they're perfect. Quote-unquote perfect, because nothing's perfect, but until they're, like, at a level that I like. Yeah, because, like, they're thumbnail sketches, so they only take, like, 10 minutes to pump out, and it's okay for me to redo them several times until they're at a level I like, because then when I get to the pencils and the inking stage, I've got a good foundation there that I didn't have to spend hours and hours on. For each page. So that is where I'm at, my friends. I keep saying that. I'm sorry. I'll cut out a bunch of them, I'm sure. Learning new things is hard, but it's good in the end. But yeah, I always hate this point in the process where I know a thing, but I don't know how to do it. That is, like, the most frustrating part of doing the art stuff. Yeah, because knowing about a thing doesn't necessarily mean you can do it perfect. So I just gotta keep at it and keep it in mind and study how people are doing it really well and be like, what are they doing? What is their thought process behind this? If I see a really good panel or page, it's like, why is this good? Let's break it down. 9 points hard because, like, I'm learning all these crazy new skills, and, like, I'm really glad that I am, because a lot of these things, like, I don't think I could learn with another project, because, like, Mones and I, looking through all the cool examples of, like, good composition, I was like, dang, these good compositions, these great colors, how am I gonna do this in 9 point? But I'm not gonna get them to be good by sitting around and thinking about it all the time, so I gotta go and try things out and study and make comic pages, and I'll be better in the future. But I gotta start now. So this feels like, okay, maybe it's just my mindset, because I've had, like, a very stressful week with, like, lots of sick pets, but I feel like this is a very, like, sad vlog. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's positive. I'm trying to be positive, because, like, what is the point in getting all sad and down on myself? There's not much, except it would feed that part of my brain that's like, everything is bad. Let's panic. And I'm like, no, panic brain, go to bed. So, color thumbnails might not happen for a little bit, because I gotta get these, like, compositions down. And maybe I should sit down with Bones and we can work on them together, and I can ask him questions. Because, like, when I'm working on compositions, I think it's like when you stare at, like, a piece of your art for a very long time, you can't really see it with, like, fresh perspective, because you've been staring at it and making it for so long. So, like, I think it will help to have someone else's, like, eyes on it to say, yeah, that looks great, I can totally understand it. Because, like, me looking at it after having drawn it for, like, several hours, it's like, I know my thought process behind it, so I can't tell if it actually makes sense sometimes. maybe that's what I'll do. I'll sit down with Bones, I'll get some fresh eyes on things, and discuss his ideas for things. Because even just talking to him at the initial feedback stage, he was like, these pages, like, they don't make sense to me. And I was like, yeah, I was really struggling with those. I have no idea what to do for that. And he was like, oh, well, what about this? And I was like, oh, what if we made it like this? And he's like, yeah. And I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to spoil things. But so it really helps to have someone there to bounce ideas off of. It also helps because Bones wrote the script and he has a really good idea of what he wants. He's a good little art director. And yeah, I'll try from there. We'll see how it goes. Thumbnails are taking a while and they're very thinky brain, hurt brain ouchies. Because there's a lot of thinking that goes into them. And they feel like they take a long time, but it'll be worth it to have really cool comic pages. I also need to apply this idea to Magpie because the Magpie pages with the Elder Gods can't be the only cool pages, I guess. Maybe I'm being hard on myself. We'll see. We'll see, guys. I'm going to work on this new concept of mine. I hope you guys take it to heart. Go research cool comics and see which panels speak to you and practice them and look at them and love them and have a good time. And always stay positive. Be forgiving of your old bad art because you didn't know the things you know back then. So now you know better and that's okay. Go be cute, draw things you like, and have a good time. I'm gonna go have fun working on thumbnails. Okay. So yeah, guys, make sure you go check out Bones' Twitch stream tomorrow. He'll be working on stuff and talking to you. They're really nice little intimate streams where you actually get like room to talk and ask questions. And Bones is cool and I'll be on the chat. Not on the microphone, but I'm always there typing away in the little chat box. So go check it out. There's a link in the description. And I'll see you guys there tomorrow. Goodbye.